the table and negotiate. Well, nobody's hurrying with anything, okay? And I've heard this scenario many times, and this is why people are just done with Major League Baseball. Many people are done with Major League Sports. It's the owners versus the players. Okay, that's a labor dispute. I get that. There's a labor union involved. I get that. But who do you side with? The owners who are billionaires or the players who are multimillionaires? Who do you side with? Who do you feel sorry for? Who are you pulling for? The ones that have more money than God or the ones that have almost as much money as God? Okay? There are no good guys or bad guys. There was a song about that, I think, from the 70s. But yeah, it's ridiculous. Nobody cares about these people. They just want baseball. The last conversation that the players and owners have had was November the 30th. I'm not saying the last active negotiation. I'm not saying the last proposal. I'm not saying the last meeting. I'm talking about the last time anybody ever picked up a phone and said, hey, what do you think? November the 30th. Now, they keep saying, well, we're still going to have a season because there's too much money on the table not to have a season. There's too much money on the table not to have a season. They've missed the point of baseball. People watch baseball for one reason: to be entertained. And friends, the billionaires and the millionaires saying, no, you don't understand. There's too much money on the table for us not to have a season. No, friends, you don't understand. Nobody cares about your stupid money. They want to do one. They want to watch a baseball game. This is hot stove league season. The Cardinals have had traditionally a wintertime thing called the winter warm-up, where a handful of players, they tour the Midwest to different small towns around the Cardinal Broadcast Network, and they go to small areas, and they have meetings, they have press conferences, they have autograph sessions, they hand out baseballs and shirts to pump you up for the season that's coming along. They've canceled that because the owners and players can't play together well. They've canceled that. Yeah, you know what? There's too much money on the table for us to worry about these stupid fans in these stupid small towns. I understand it's about the money. And I understand it's always about the money. But if it's always about the money, can it also be allegiance to your sports team? And if you say yes, because baseball is different. Yes, I'm always a Cardinal. I bleed Cardinal red. Think about this. The players and the owners are both saying there's too much money on the table and this is a business. That's the people who are trying to sell something to you. What if your car company, the cars that you really like, what if they said that? It's only a business. You have to understand. Or the restaurant you like to go to. Or the brand of paint you like to use on your living room walls. Okay? Now, what does paint manufacturing have to do with baseball? Well, if you listen to the owners and the players, everything. It's all about the money. I mean, if Sherwin-Williams all of a sudden has a strike and I can't get Sherwin-Williams paint because of a labor dispute, am I going to say, why, F those owners of Sherwin-Williams? I want the guys who are painting or making the paint. I want them to get more money, so I'm going to go ahead and stand firm, and Sherwin-Williams is my paint, and Sherwin-Williams is my... No. You're going to say, what? You're not going to give me paint because of a labor dispute? Okay, I'll buy another brand of paint. And that's how sports is getting to be. I'll just do something else. Friends, we're all very busy. I'm a super busy individual, but I don't think I'm any busier than anybody else. Even if you're a retired individual, you're busy. You're doing other things with your life, okay? And if the baseball people aren't going to give you something that's entertaining, you'll go someplace else. That's just the way we work. We'll go someplace else. Now, I know there's a lot of money involved, but back in the 70s, when I was a huge baseball fan, the players roomed together. They had jobs during the off season. If you've ever driven down Highway 70, and Lucas Hunt Road, if you know where that is, there's an apartment complex still there, still called Lucas Hunt Village. Okay. Very modest apartments, working class apartments. That's where a lot of the Cardinals lived during the season. And a lot of them even shared apartments. That's where Ken Reitz and Mike Tyson, not the boxer, the Cardinal shortstop, that's where they lived, okay? Because they lived someplace else during the offseason, and they had jobs elsewhere during the offseason, usually selling cars or appliances or something like that, okay? A lot of them did that because of name recognition. I bought a car from Ken Reitz, okay? But they didn't live in St. Louis during the off-season, but they did during the regular season. They had to find another place to live. So they got a relatively inexpensive apartment, shared it with their buddy. Lucas Hunt Village is probably, 10 minutes from downtown? So it's close, but it's far enough to be away from work. It worked out well. None of them do that anymore. I used to go to 10 to 20 games a year, usually sat in the bleachers, because they cost $1, okay? I didn't even have a car then. I would take the Redbird Express that took you from Northland Shopping Center, drop you off at Busch Stadium. Or my mother would take me, or my father would take me, or somebody else's friend's mother or father would take us, drop us off. We love baseball. I don't buy baseball tickets anymore. I get free corporate tickets. And a couple of years ago, I think last year, maybe the first year, maybe the year before that, but they changed the tax laws where the businesses can't write off baseball tickets anymore. Did you see what happened to the Cardinals' attendance last year? Now, I know there was some COVID-19 last year too, especially early. But friends, they didn't draw 3 million people last year. They didn't come close to drawing 3 million people. Okay? Because the vast majority of people who buy tickets are corporations, and they can't write them off on their taxes anymore. So they're not buying the tickets. See where I'm getting? See what I'm doing? I used to love to go to the ball game. I stayed for the whole game because it was entertaining. It was fun. It cost $1. You listen to the organ music. You watch the crowd. You eat a hot dog. You drink a soda pop. I don't care to go to the baseball game anymore. What's the number one thing with baseball? What's the number one thing with sports anymore? Okay. Is it, wow, did you watch so-and-so play ball? He played a wonderful third base, and he stole 3 bases last night, and his interview at the end of the game, he was all up, and no, it's, well, what's his OPS? What's his OPS plus? What's his WIP? What's his WAR? OPS plus, WIP, WAR, WTF. Stop it. It's not a video game. It's not a statistical thing. Baseball should be a fun event. The number one conversation with sports now is the gambling thing, the over and the under, the fantasy sports, so you can bet on baseball, bet on hockey, bet on soccer, bet on football, bet on basketball. It's like the lottery. It's like a horse race. It's like a slot machine. Now, I'm not a big gambler, but I don't have anything against people that gamble. If you want to do that, that's fun. That's fine. But the number one draw to sports now is gambling. And again, how do you think Pete Rose feels? A guy who had more hits in baseball than anybody ever. And they won't let him in because, well, you gambled on baseball. More on that story after this word from Bally Sports. Major League Baseball, sports in general. Friends, you're losing me. And I'm not the only one. Quick word on a Joe Rogan podcast I heard. A buddy of mine at work said, hey, have you listened to the latest Joe Rogan podcast? I said, I don't think so. What is it? It's Oliver Stone. I rolled my eyes. No. Listen to it. It's good. And it is. Oliver Stone nowadays has kind of turned into a one-trick pony. He's still on the JFK assassination thing. But the interview is very good. And it's not because I learned anything about the JFK assassination. I was reminded of some things that I already knew, but it was entertaining. With the exception of the fact that Oliver Stone, who's a Hollywood guy who makes movies for a living, couldn't keep his face by the microphone, and he kept fading in and out. I have to keep turning up the volume, turning down the volume, because he couldn't keep his pie hole close to the microphone. Other than that, Rogan asked excellent questions. And Stone had interesting answers. And it wasn't, hey, this is definitely like this because. It's, hey, if it's not like this, then why did this happen if that's not the result? And the biggest thing behind this whole JFK assassination thing as to why people are still up in arms about this conspiracy that happened, 60 years ago? 70 years ago? Let's see, 40, 50, 60 years ago. Almost 60 years ago. It's because they still haven't released the information. Everybody involved with the Kennedy assassination is dead. All of them. Why won't they release the information? President Biden said he was going to release the information. We can't release that. We'll release this, but half of it's redacted. It makes you ask that question. Now, I stopped being a big conspiracy theorist with the Kennedy assassination after I personally made a trip to Dealey Plaza, looked at where the gunshot came from, where Kennedy was driving, the fact that Lee Harvey Oswald was a Marine Corps vet with a marksman badge tag medal. Okay, when a Marine wins a marksman medal, I'm not big into guns. I don't know much about guns, to be honest. But I'm here to tell you, friends, that didn't look like a tough shot to me. In other words, it was highly possible. It wasn't an impossibility. It was something that, you know what? It's very possible that he could have done it. Now, the whole magic bullet thing, I think, is ridiculous. There were people in the grassy knoll. I've seen the grassy knoll. The grassy knoll is a group of, it's like a little section of grass that you'd sit on and have a picnic, okay? If there was a gunman on the grassy knoll, you'd have seen him. There's no place to hide, okay? There's no trees, there's no fence. You'd have seen him. So much of the whole Kennedy assassination conspiracy theory, you're going down a hopeless rabbit hole. But then why hasn't the government released the information? What's this whole thing about the magic bullet that just, nothing's impossible, I guess, but it's not probable at all? And all those people who died, I'm not going to say murdered. To say, well, they were right. The 19 main witnesses were all murdered within a few years. Well, no. They all died within a short length of time. But that's a fact. But they weren't necessarily murdered. But it's a whole if-then thing. And Rogan is an outstanding interviewer, the best interviewer out there, in my opinion. If you get a chance, listen to the Joe Rogan podcast with the interview of Oliver Stone. Quite entertaining. I'm an old man. I admit that I'm an old man. I think like an old man in many, many ways. Now, what do I mean by that? Just because of the way things are, I don't like to do things the way things are many times. And when something's forced down my throat, I rebel. Case in point, I think I made this statement before, or told this story before, about how I went to Starbucks. This was during the pandemic. Walked up to the window, tried to order something, and they said, "Oh no, sir," because they weren't letting people into the store. They were only letting you order through the window, or you could go in the store to pick up an order. Where you go in, there's a table. Somebody walks out from behind the counter, sits it on the table. You walk in, you pick it up from the table. I get all that, okay? So I walked up to the window to try to order, and they said, "Did you order on the app?" I said, "No, I don't have an app." So you can't order you can only order on the app. I said, "Well, I don't have the app." He said, "Well, you need to download it and order and pay on the app." And then, "Well, how do I pick up my drink?" I said, "Well, you can come to the window, but you got to have a car. You can't walk up to this window." I was staying in a hotel just down the street. I didn't have my car with me. I said, okay, well, I don't have a car, so how else can I pick up my drinks? He says, well, you can walk in and